We are broadcasting here from the US, and Expansion Network, what we do every single day is accelerating the consciousness of humanity. As you know, also here in the US, I'm known as the CEO confidant in the world of business, and I'm known in Latin America as the co-founder and president of the Wisdom for Kids Foundation. And today we have someone with us extremely special. She's an excellence coach, but it's extremely difficult and complicated for me to actually summarize the wealth, abundance, and complexity and adventurous life of Daisy Papp. Because really, I mean, I've been able to read 3 of her books, and it's an amazing human being. It's an amazing person that is doing so much for the good of humanity right now. Welcome, Daisy Papp, to Expansion Network.
Thank you so much, Angel. I'm so appreciative of your time and the opportunity to speak to your audience and speak with you. And thank you for introducing me. So I feel very humbled by this. Thank you.
Thank you. No, please. It's our, as I always say, I'm just the conduit of your greatness. So it's great to have you here. So as all the time happens, you never know who you're going to meet and where you're going to meet them, right? So actually, the reason why, or the way that Daisy and I met is literally through someone else that I was interviewing. And she reached out to me, which obviously I love that she did. And then we started talking, and she was kind enough to share with me actually 3 of her books that I have here with me, and I was able to read 2 of them completely, and the other one I have already started that I am halfway through. And her personal story is just amazing. I would like, please share with the audience, Daisy, if you had to define yourself. I just call you like an excellence coach, but I think that our life is dynamically changing, right? So how do you typically like to define yourself, Daisy?
Very simple. I was born a female, and I'm blonde, obviously, and I have something that functions quite fine between my ears, and I'm using it to make this world a better place. That's how I would define myself.
Awesome. Could you please tell everybody where you were born, where you originally from, where did you live? What's the role of what I think it was one of your uncles that he was an especially very important role in your life. Again, as I am a little bit in advantage,
yes,
advantageously asking her very important questions because I was able to read her books, right? So could you tell us a little bit more about you, if you don't mind?
Yes, sure. So I was born and raised in Germany. My mother was born in Hamburg, so she was the real German. And my father, he was born in Hungary. So he was from Budapest originally. And the 2 of them met in the south of Germany, and then they fell in love, and I am the fruit of their love. Now, when I was 8 years old, my father went on a road trip with his parents, my grandparents, and my mom, and I supposed to travel with them. But nevertheless, last minute, my father said, Daisy, you stay home with your brother, which actually saved my life, because shortly after leaving the house, they crashed, and my mom was the only survivor. Then when I was 17, I was studying abroad because I wanted to learn the country, the tradition, the culture, the language of my father. So after school, I went to Hungary to study. And there was also a holiday celebration. So my mom calls me in the morning. She says, Daisy, sit on a plane, come home. And because I'd like you to read some of the poems that I wrote for the people who assist in the company. So I traveled and I was there. And the next morning we planned on flying out to Geneva in Switzerland from Stuttgart. And last minute, my mom turns around and she says, Daisy, it's too much stress. Why don't you stay here? Calm weekend and all good. And we'll see each other back on Monday. We will be back. Comes Monday, and I receive a call on my brother's phone line, which was a private phone line, and the plane had crashed. So I survived one more time. And that must have caused something within me that I believed, okay, so life is not worthwhile living if life is all about pain and guilt, survivor guilt, and if there's nothing beautiful and I'm lost and abandoned and I'm orphaned, I don't want to live, and this is just so bad. And luckily, well, something must have happened within me because I'm here and I have it all behind me, that I met a doctor lady who really changed my life by doing something with me while she treated me physically. And for the first time after the plane crash, years later, I felt sort of liberated and lighter. And I said, I don't know what you just did with me, but exactly that I'm going to study. And a few weeks later, I find myself in class studying from a psychology professor who was the first and only trainer in Eastern Europe for NLP, neuro-linguistic programming. And I was so excited, and I wanted to try it on everyone and everything living. And then sometimes it worked well, and sometimes the results were just not so exciting or working well. And then I kept searching, and I, like a little information vacuum, I went wherever I could to find value and modalities that function and work. And then in 2008, I founded Self-Recoding, because who am I to update your software or recode you? I believe in your subconscious mind that you know what's best for you, whomever you are who is working with me, or the groups, or in the seminars or workshops. And it is, I would say, a very interesting recipe of very powerful, fast, modern, up-to-date, all backed by science methods. And it works quite well. And I'm glad that people trust me.
Just in case the audience believes that this is not enough of an adventurous life, let me add an additional edge, because she happened to be in a very specific place in this country, in the US, in the South, let's say in the southern Keys in Florida, when actually a hurricane struck, literally, and she happened to be there at that time, right? And so again, it's like she really likes, or she really seems to be always in the right place in the right time, right? Tell us a little bit more about that hurricane.
Well, I moved here into the beautiful, my chosen home, Florida Keys. It's my.
You are there now?
Home.
You are in the Florida Keys right now?
I live now. Yes, I'm resilient. The hurricane didn't chase me far enough. So I moved here in 2016, and in 2017 we got this hurricane warning, which is not the first extraordinary moment of a hurricane warning here in Florida. People who live there, they're almost used to it, that from time to time a hurricane says hello, and sometimes it passes, and sometimes it hits directly. And so I took it seriously, and I had help, and we put wood on the windows, and I brought in every flying object that by any strong wind could maybe fly around in the yard. And then I left, and I knew the house where I'm living in is 65 years old. So it survived so many hurricanes before, and there was apparently never any water in the house. So I had my hopes high. I evacuated the Florida Keys because it was mandated. And I went to Miami. I had a possibility to stay there. And well, hurricane came, and we were not allowed to come home. It was not possible to drive back into the Keys for 1 week. And I'm sitting on pins and needles, and I think, oh, okay, so the house is dry and all my belongings are fine. Everybody is safe. Well, after 1 week, we were allowed to drive back, and with a couple of friends of mine, we drove in here because they lived in the same town as I. And so I'm putting on my construction boots, and I'm walking over debris. I mean, thigh-high branches, and the smell hits the nose, because freezers, you would never think what freezers can smell like after a while when they're disconnected and swimming in salt water. It's amazing. I don't wish it anyone. So it's kind of, well, almost like a movie, but in real life. And so I'm walking towards the house. I'm approaching the front porch, and I see this is not looking good. And I'm walking into the house, and I mean, I couldn't walk through the house because there was a huge hole in the bottom of the living room. So the water came from underneath. It probably bursted open. And then when the flood went away, then it took all my belongings. So I lost almost everything. I mean, everything, at least, that was below hip high, because that's how high the water was. So for 6 months, I couldn't come back and have a home. And I knew that I was not the only one. So I offered free group sessions for the locals to come together once a week. So I drove from Miami, that's like 2+ hours, 2.5, based on traffic once a week and drove down here. I did a group meeting with people and I went back 2.5 hours to Miami because there was no place to stay here in the Keys. And a very, very sweet group of people who, when I see them nowadays at a theater or if I run into them at a grocery store, we're so glad to see one another because we empowered one another. And I knew back then that maybe I lost my shoes, my books, my bicycle, my everything that's below. What do you store below hip high in the house, right? Sofa and furniture and kitchen and stove and refrigerator. But I knew one thing, that life can never, ever take away from me what I have here and what I have in my heart. And that's exactly what I continued sharing. Exactly. And then little by little, I, built up my private life again. So I have a couch again and I have a desk. and although I have a couch solely for decoration, I maybe twice a year I sit on it because I don't spend time there. There's so many more exciting things to do where I can be of help.
Awesome. That's amazing. And also something that it still hasn't transpired of this conversation is the musical skills that I also was blown away when I listened to them. So could you share a little bit, where does your like gifted or talented musical skills that you have, where do they come from, and where did you take them?
Oh, well, so where they come from, I believe humbly that they come from the genes that I have received through my parents. My great uncle, Karl Richter, he was a very famous conductor. He was specialized in Baroque music, Johann Sebastian Bach, Handel, and that era. And I believe that some of the genes may have just crisscrossed through my system. And when I was 8 years old, my father died. I was so saddened. But an 8-year-old is very different in expressing grief and sadness and shock and trauma. So I could not express it verbally because I didn't even know what it was that I felt. And I sat at a piano and I started composing for no reason. It just was a language that eased my pain and my grief. And then later on in boarding school, I was the only child there. We had a chapel and there was an organ, and oh my, it sounded heavenly. And I was the only child there in that boarding school who was allowed to play on that organ, although I didn't take piano classes. But I went to the school director and I said, I must play the organ, sir. You must understand. I must do that so I can communicate to my father. And I think the man was heartbroken, and he said, so here's the key, okay, just don't tell anyone, don't let anyone go with you, but you just go and play. And later on, I continued writing songs and music, and it was just a natural expression of me, what I cannot write in typing, or what I cannot express with verbal expressions through speech or through lyrics, then it was the music that came. And I continued doing that. And one day I had a very dear friend at a very nice hotel in Europe, and he would like to play there after hours at a bar. And I visited him because why not? A midnight drink here and there. I was young and I could use the sleepless nights, and I could handle them with less recovery sleep afterwards than today. And so I visited there, and there were still some guests, but there only were a few. So I sit there and I start playing the piano, and then a lady walks up to me and she's crying. She has tears in her eyes, and she says, what is it that you just played? And I said, oh, well, I composed it. Do you have more of that? And I said, yes. And then she gave me her business card, and I continued playing. I put it in my handbag. I went home. And then at home the next day, I look at the business card. It was the CEO of a major music label. And so I gave her a phone call, and then we published an album with them. So I had a 5-year contract as a singer-songwriter, and I produced 2 albums for them. I produced them for them because I don't like to be bent, and don't put me in that box that I don't fit oftentimes. So I'm not happy when I'm put in boxes or labels on me. Yeah. So that.
So, and actually, it's the perfect. Excuse me, we had some technical glitches here. So it's actually the perfect. You left the conversation in a perfect place because, as I said before, she was kind enough. Daisy was kind enough to share with me 3 of her books, and one. I mean, I am for some reason, every time in my life that I've lived next to the ocean, next to the water, I've always thrived in a big, massive way. So when I saw the cover of this book, okay, that's one of her books, The Island Model. I obviously I read the book. It's really a great book to read. It's like with double spaces and everything. So it's a very easy read. Like, sorry, yeah, you can see it here. But the message is really powerful. And when I read it, and probably it's because what I do for a living, my consulting business, I immediately had this vision that, oh my God, this island model is so relevant today. It's so relevant with everything that's happening in the world that has happened for the last 20 plus months, with so many people that has lost connection to themselves, connection to the others, connection to the rest of the world, to their community, to their relatives, even to their friends. Yeah. It's like, and one of my missions is to bring connection to the unconnected. And when I saw that, when I read this book, I said, "Oh my God, this is gold dust for what's happening in the world today." And I have to tell you 2 things, which really makes her an extraordinary human being on top of everything that she has already explained. Number one, I told her, "Hey, don't you think that if you dig it a little bit, that could literally talk to everybody in the world right now that might have lost some connection in any sort of form?" And she was kind enough, because most of the people would say, no. I mean, this guy has never published anything, blah, blah, blah. But she was open to listen. Daisy was open to listen. Okay,
he put me to work. He put me to work.
Exactly. So I just suggested something. Hey, have you realized that this could be an amazing, read for so many people right now that would help them so much? And she's all about helping, as you heard. But the second thing that I wanted to point out, besides her openness to listen and to actually really realize and acknowledge that something might be there of value, the second thing is that she took action immediately. And I'm talking about the conversation Daisy and I had just a few days ago. And she not only took action, but believe it or not, the new edition of this new book, and that's why we called this this interview, the new book, the official launch of the book, Homo Sapiens Isolatus, right, or Isolatus, to this conversation, is because that's how she has called her new book. So could you please explain a little bit more? So she's an action taker. That's the message I was trying to convey. She's an action taker, and very often there's a lot of coaches out there. There's a lot of people that help each other, but sometimes they don't listen enough, or maybe sometimes they don't do what they preach. And that's not the case with Daisy. And that's why I think that she lives so much in the present moment that she knows that what she doesn't get done in the present moment might vanish or might not get done ever. So she took action immediately, and then suddenly this week she sends an email saying, "I have already published it. It's already uploaded to this amazing marketplace, and I'm already started to sell." And again, could you please explain what the island model is, and what can people expect from the Homo Sapiens Isolatus book?
Yeah. So first of all, somehow you're really involved, and I even gave credit at the end of the book where I'm saying the thank yous, because it really was you. It was our conversation. So Angel and I, we met one day, we spoke 1 week later, just to reconnect. And he, in the meantime, had received my books, and he says, "Daisy, I think it's a good idea to rewrite the island model, because that's what people really need." And I said, "Okay, and then I thought of it, and we were talking a little longer. We also are discussing some live workshops that are in the planning, actually, that will be starting to happen end of January. And so he's very responsible, I have to say. And yes, I thought of it. Okay, so I agree, because the island model is very simple and very compact and very in-depth, logical approach that helps everyone, no matter the cultural background, no matter the geographics, no matter the gender, age, preferences, belief, faith. It is really for humans. Because in this principle, it's a metaphor. I did not invent or come up with this metaphor, but a German psychologist and management trainer who lived until 2011, Vera F. Birkenbiel, she came up with that. And when I learned that, I further developed it over the past 10 years. And it is just so huge. I believe when she came up with that invention and intervention, she was not aware what huge metaphor and what great power it can have to really bring tolerance and acceptance increasingly to all areas of our lives, in all communities. It sounds almost like too good to be true. Trust me, it really works. I used it in thousands of sessions with clients, in hundreds of hours, workshops and seminars conducted. And it is so simple and so understandable. And my big vision is, and I may smile upon that, is that one day it will be taught for free around the globe. It will be available for everyone in all languages and all dialects wherever possible. And the Homo sapiens Isolatus, how I called it, I think it is rather clear through the title Homo sapiens. We know it's the human species, and Isolatus, although Isolatus from Latin, and you speaking Spanish, Angel, it is clear, but also Isolatus, I believe that it becomes very clear. And yes, in this island model, we live metaphorically in our own island, having all our treasures, the fears, the hopes, the dreams, the achievements, the broken dreams, the broken hearts. Everything is in there. And wherever we go, we take that island with us. And now the question is, how can we build bridges to other islanders? Because me, from my point of view, for my island, with all the treasures that I've experienced throughout my life, and I am courageous enough to walk over your bridge and have a look from your perspective, how it looks from your point of view, then it becomes easier instantly to understand why you do when you do it. And that is where we can come together. And I'm writing in this new edition, so I rewrote the book. There are tiny parts that are kept from the original 2017 island model, but the rest is new, and there are very absolute stunning questions in there. I'm blonde, and I take that as my birthright and my human being right to ask questions. And those who feel uncomfortable with the questions, then they can just turn the page or scroll down on their e-reader, and that is fine as well.
It's I have to say that obviously in all justice, I mean, it's a very easy read. It's just written not only from wisdom, from a place of wisdom, but it's also written from a place of kindness and love. So I mean, thank you for the disclaimer, but it's really a pleasure to read this book. And again, you know, I literally read this book and another of her books like in a sitting. I couldn't stand that because I was really hooked into the message. You know, we've covered so many things. I would really like maybe just to finalize our conversation, just maybe because you have served a lot of people, right? With your coaching practice, with your business, you have helped a lot of people. What would you say that the people that you have served so far in your life with your coaching practice, what would you say that they all have in common? What is the profile of the people that you have been able to help so far, Daisy?
Well, it is that they felt somewhere that they are either stuck or felt in pain, or they couldn't reach their goals, they felt blocked, or they wanted to get away from a space and place in their life, mentally, physically, professionally, and they wanted to find a way. And I'm getting them all there where they want to go. I'm not deciding where they want to go. I mean, I have athletes, world class athletes who won and protected their world champion titles, and I have athletes who won gold in Olympics, and I have clients who are neighbors in the neighborhood, and young, old. The youngest is 13 years old, and he's just studying with joy now because he rediscovered his curiosity. And it is divorced people, it's singles, and there are many. It I remember when you and I started speaking, you said, so Daisy, what's the profile? Who is the ideal client? The ideal client is human. I'm not so good with animals. So that's the truth. So, and whoever has a goal, whoever wants to understand how life can be so easy. I believed for the longest time growing up that life is so complicated, and it is not. You may think now, dear viewer and dear listener, that yeah, I'm easy to say this. No, I'm not saying that with an easy heart or irresponsibly. When you know the tools and you learn the skills, it is so logical that it's so much easier than we had ever thought. And I'm here to share that, and I do it as much as I can, and that's what I'm here for, and I'm doing all I can. And yes, I agree with you. I do it now because now is all I have.
Exactly. Okay, so if everybody watching us today, they would like to connect with you. What's the best way to do it? How can people reach out and talk to you, Daisy?
Well, the best way is when they go to the daisypapp.com website. There's a contact form, or they can send me an email, daisy@daisypapp.com, or they can find me on the podcast. I'm doing a podcast with a lady from Australia, and we have listeners in 58 countries in the meantime. And we started like 18 months ago with this podcast. And we are in the top 2% of global rankings as of 2 days ago. This is very exciting. So it's easy to find us, baldandblonde.live, or on any podcast platform where you like to consume podcasts. I am not very present on social media. I am present, but I'm not really on a daily basis because I'm so busy helping people. Especially, I'm very much in the background helping those who help very big communities and counties.
Awesome.
And
Thank you so much. It's been really a big pleasure for all of us here at Expansion Network to have you here today. Thank you so much for sharing. It's been a pleasure, Daisy. So thank you so much for sharing so much with our audience here at Expansion Network.
Thank you,
Definitely talking to our mission, which is accelerating the consciousness of humanity. So thank you for being with us today, and everybody watching us, thank you for being with us today. Again, I'm sure that you have enjoyed the conversation with Daisy as much as we have. Amazing life. Please don't forget to go and look for her books, especially the Homo Sapiens Isolatus, which is really a powerful book. I think it's going to help millions of people because it's really powerful. It's easy to understand. It's a loving, caring book. Yes. And again, obviously, I would like to wish you, and I'm sure that Daisy is subscribing to that too. Have a very Merry Christmas, the ones that celebrate the Christmas, and the ones that you just gonna meet with your family and relatives and friends. Just enjoy this holiday season. Have a wonderful time, all of you together. And we hope to see you soon in our next interview. Thank you so much, and have a wonderful rest of the day and an enjoyable Christmas day.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.